All right, well, I'll go ahead and I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:06. Board of Selectmen meeting, August 30th. Will be called to order, and with that, we'll open up with public comment, if any. All right, Monty, if you want to unmute Jenny.
Jenny, you've been unmuted. Could you state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Jenny Amory from 8 Andrews Hollow. Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I just wanted, I know I had sent an email to the select board members just late this afternoon. So I just wanted to mention a few things about it. First of all, select board chair Brackett, I really appreciate the Facebook post about needing volunteers for committees and commissions. I thought that was a great idea to kind of publicly share with residents that we need more volunteers to step up. And I thought I would just share very briefly 2 ideas to help make that happen, which maybe some of you have already thought about. But the first is, it goes back to the policy that the select board implemented July 1st, which is about residents not serving on more than 3 committees. And unless the select board makes an exception, which they did in one case. I know that this was brought up in a prior select board meeting, which I was not able to attend, but I just wanted to highlight again the importance, I think, of not counting in committees where people have been elected to a committee or been appointed by the town moderator. I think as select board members, you know how much time and work it is to serve on committees. It's an enormous amount of time, and it is also for committee members often. And the reason I can share this is because I saw it firsthand when I was a member of the Green Community Task Force, and I just saw the hours people put in. And so when there's an opportunity to have not just any individual I'm thinking of, but I'm thinking also of the future to encourage people to also to serve on committees that can collaborate with one another as well. I think it serves the town's interest. So that's my first thought, which I know you've heard before, but I really wanted to ask the select board chair to reconsider revising that policy. And the second thing is that while I'm not familiar with the details of the Conservation Commission, I have personally been the CEO of nonprofits in a foundation, and I, for example, was asked to serve on a committee that hired a police chief in a particular town. So I'm very familiar with how to not only hire people, but also select volunteers. And I would just urge the select board to consider really thinking through the, again, in more depth, the process by which volunteers are interviewed and so forth, and then actually given a decision. I saw on the agenda that one person is being voted on. I know there are a couple other people who have been months, wanting to be on the Conservation Commission. And I just feel like in order to encourage others, having a very fair and open kind of process about, and some of this you've outlined, like the need to attend committee meetings, a couple of them, have interviews. But I think timeliness is also a really important aspect if you want to not discourage other volunteers in the community. So I love Rockport. I love this town. And I think there is so much potential between the volunteers who serve on committees working to support the town staff. So I'll end now so others can speak, but I would really appreciate the select board's consideration of both of those ideas.
Thank you, Jenny. I'll just touch on the reason why the elected position was one of the ones that was targeted in the actual policy is because when you are at an elected position, some see you as having more power, quote unquote, even if it's not your committee that you're serving on that you're elected to and you're appointed to. Sometimes that power can be seen from other volunteers as well. This one's been elected to this committee. So, and also that mindset can also be carried over from a resident onto a committee as well, that they were elected on another committee before. So I just want to touch on that. And that's why that specific elected positions were targeted in that policy for us to go with. Next up is Nathaniel.
Thank you, Chairman Brackett. Thank you, Select Board members. And hello, Mitch Vieira. I'm grateful to be able to speak. I'm grateful for the comments by Jenny Amory, which echoes some of my sentiments as well. I have the honor of living in Rockport. I've had the honor of living in many other places, and in each of the communities that I've been privileged to live, I have volunteered for various committees, usually along the environmental stance, because of my experience and background. In each of those communities, the volunteering process was 24 to 48 hours, with one exception, which took 5 days. In this case, the process has been drawn out, and I would like a little clarification if possible, because I know that Laura and I have met the requirements of meeting with town council. We have attended multiple meetings as was outlined in the requirements for volunteering for Concom. And I received an email that apparently there is a new member who will be voted on today, but I have not seen any evidence that that person has met the requirements that Laura and I were required to go through months ago. The other question I had, and perhaps Chairman Brackett could answer this directly, is in the email I received, it appeared that hiring one more volunteer for Concom would allow for a quorum to exist. If that's the case, that means that either Laura or I could have been appointed 4 months ago, and we could have avoided having an absent Concom for 4 or 5 months. Is that the case, Chairman Brackett? Thank you.
I'll address that. So first, I'll address why the policy, why the process is happening this way as we get to the item. But I will address that Dawn has been a little less quiet than you and Laura have been, and she was actually at the meeting, the one that you were scheduled to go to first, but you never showed up to that first meeting. She was at that meeting. We've had 6 candidates, 3 have dropped out. We have 3 remaining candidates. She was at the first meeting that was weeks before your and Laura's meeting, and that's why she's up first. She just has been less vocal about it. She's been patiently waiting, and we've been communicating with her when we can, and now we're on to the process that's getting done. Next up is Toby.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I note what Jenny Amory says about your advertising open positions on town committees on Facebook. Facebook isn't an official organ of the town of Rockport, so I think that's rather strange. I thought you had a policy on advertising positions. I'm not sure what it is. Certainly part of it ought to be announcing the positions as being open at your selectmen's meetings. You say that hundreds of people follow them. I'm skeptical, but maybe so. And you also say that you don't begrudge the time. So if it takes you 30 seconds or 2 minutes at every meeting to list the positions that are open, that's time well spent. As you never cease saying, the town depends on the volunteers. As for the appointment and the interview for the Conservation Commission, it was a month ago, perhaps 6 weeks, that I spoke about the process for an interview and suggested that the members of the present Conservation Commission should be invited to attend and ask questions of the candidate. Obviously, with no meetings of the Conservation Commission in the past 4 months, the candidates, whoever they are, have not had an opportunity to attend meetings. So that would be the next best thing, and it would give the candidate a chance to hear from the people that they would be working with. The public also would get a chance. And I suggested as well that the public be allowed to ask questions of the candidate when you're interviewing them. That was a board policy before, that you nominated candidates at one meeting and appointed at your next meeting 2 weeks later. Apparently that's gone by the board. That's unfortunate. That's a large step in the wrong direction. So I find fault with that. Several times when the appointment to the Conservation Commission, clearly a subject of some controversy, has been discussed, Mitch Vieira said that you were looking to see that the candidates were fit. I didn't quite gather what fit meant at first, but now I have suspicions. I think it would be helpful for the public generally if you defined what you mean by fit to serve on the Conservation Commission, because certainly there are rumors flying. You must be well aware of them, and Mitch Vieira said that town council would be asked to attend the meetings. So that implies that the Conservation Commission, whoever it's going to be when it's reconstituted, are not going to be trusted, that they have to be on a leash and a tether, and the town council has to superintend them. I can think of at least another town board that town council could attend with more profit. But I wonder about that. Certainly that's going to cost us a considerable sum of money. And why even bother to have a Conservation Commission if in the end it's town council that's writing up the decisions? And I would think of that next spring when we're asked to foot the bill for a conservation agent, if we ever manage to get one. Why should we pay for one if town council is going to sit back and actually do it for them? I'd like a response on my request that the public get to ask questions of the candidates.
So,
They
Mr.
won't-
Chair, I'm
Go
going to
ahead,
just address the
Town council
part about town council, because I thought I was pretty clear in the last meeting, but I'll reiterate now because there seems to be some confusion on it. We're pretty clear that town council was there to provide assistance as we go forward. We have no agent, despite a lot of effort. There is a need for technical expertise. Boards have technical expertise assigned to them. In this case, we have an agent. To get the commission up and running, there are a lot of requirements that not everybody is aware of, particularly relating to prep for a meeting and then the filings and closeouts after a meeting. There is a need to refresh some folks and to educate some folks who are coming on new so that they're aware of it. At no time was it said that town council is going to be making the decisions or doing the work of the Conservation Commission. That has never been said, because that's simply not true. They are there to be the technical expert and resource, just like an agent would. As I said, Selectman Lilia and I will be there to provide support and help on the logistics end of things, because there's going to be some really significant startup requirements for this. Conservation has some of the most stringent preparation and closeout legal requirements for projects than any other board. So we're going to try to make sure we're getting everything done with that. And while we're without an agent, council number one needs to come in and provide general training and to be the resource to say, okay, what do we need to do to get this done? What are the legal requirements we need to hit? If there's a question that comes up, dealing with a particular matter, offering their input and their advice, just like an agent would. At no time was it said that council would be running the commission or would be operating in the commission's stead.
And to answer the other question, I'll look at it to making a policy to have the public ask questions, but I don't have any interest in having the public ask questions that will cause the interview process to either get out of hand or get too long. And that's how I look at that. So next up is Laura.
Hi, my
Laura,
name
could
is,
you state your name and
my name is,
address for the record?
sure. My name is Laura Evans. I live at 77 High Street. And I have to say that after I've lived in town for over 40 years, and I've been a volunteer for most of those years. And I have to say that this is the most frustrating volunteer year I've certainly ever had. I've been in the queue for the Concom since April, May, early in the spring. And I had 2 interviews in August, one on the 4th with Denise Donnelly and one on the 17th with Mitch and Denise. And at both of those meetings, they said, well, we'll be appointing 3 members at the meeting on the 30th of August. And so be prepared. And So in that preparation, I'm also chairman of the Ad Hoc Water Committee, and we were supposed to have a meeting tonight at 5:30. So I moved the meeting to start at 5 o'clock so that I could make it to this meeting tonight to be interviewed. And the Ad Hoc Water is facing some of our biggest challenges yet. I mean, we had a great meeting in July where Jim Gardner of the DPW was asking for our assistance in helping to educate the public on the worst drought that I've seen in 40 years. So we've been scrambling around to prepare and figure out ways to help Rockport through this awful crisis that we're experiencing. And yet, lo and behold, tonight at 5 o'clock, the members of the committee, they're pulling off the road so they can call in at 5, leaving work early so they can participate, and there's no moderator. And there was no moderator, and finally at 20 after 5, I called the meeting. I apologized to the members, the volunteers, for wasting their time. And we're going to have to reschedule this meeting and ramp up all over again. No explanation, no notice. And as for tonight's interview, whatever you're deciding, however you're going to do it, that's your business. But I was never notified. I found out that I was not being interviewed by looking at the website and seeing the agenda for tonight's meeting. So no communication about there not being a moderator available for Ad Hoc Water, no communication about not being interviewed. It's very challenging, to keep volunteering your time under these conditions. I mean, why?
So I'm going to address the moderator. That, as I said in my email back to you, the moderator confirmed he had a personal issue that came up and it caused him to get there late. So let's not conflate Concom concerns with the moderator had a personal issue come up and couldn't start the meeting on time. I think it's important to keep two very separate issues very separate, because they are very separate.
Go
Yeah, can
ahead,
I
Selectman
add
Wilkinson.
some? Can
Mhm.
I add some too? And Laura, I'm not sure. I would highly question that Mitch and Denise in early August told you what was going to be happening on the 30th. On Friday, the chair, vice chair, and I met, as we do every Friday morning before, or it might have been Thursday, before a meeting to set the agenda. So the agendas aren't set. And at the meeting before this, we stated really clearly that we were going to be, sorry, I have to shut off my phone, that we were going to begin the process of interviewing Concom applicants, and we were going to do them in order of how their applications came through. And that's exactly what we did. So I frankly, like, what's frustrating to me is all of this, Toby talking about rumors and I didn't know. Laura, you emailed members of the board last week about you not being interviewed tonight. So to say that you just found out, I think isn't exactly accurate. We are working as hard as we can. Ross, Mitch, and I probably spent at least 10 hours last week working through Conservation Commission issues that we've discussed. Some are legal and can't be discussed publicly, but we are working as hard as we can to get a Conservation Commission up and running again. And part of that, and we really want to set the commission up for success. And that's why we're willing to invest in having town council at the first few meetings, because frankly, we want the commission up and running, and without an agent, that seems to be the best solution. It will cost the town, but we're willing to do it. So I think just this whole conspiracy theory, there's nothing. We are working really hard to get a Conservation Commission up and running. We have my impression is that we will have one interview tonight, and then one the next meeting, and one the next meeting.
Yep, and just at last meeting, I didn't state all 3 members would be appointed. I know that for a fact. Selectwoman Donnelly?
Yeah, and if I may, Laura, I guess I'm a little frustrated because we've explained this so many times and have had this same discussion so many times that I'm a little frustrated that we're having it again. We all wish that this could have happened more quickly and more efficiently. The reality is it didn't. And there are a lot of reasons, that some of which we've shared, which we are able to share, some of which we are not. And we've talked about that with you. I personally, and I know Mitch and I as well. So as Sarah said, we're doing everything we can. We're on it. We'd love that this would have been resolved much sooner, and it just hasn't been. Sometimes things take time. Not every volunteer process happens this way. We had a special circumstance with the Conservation Commission. And as Sarah said, we're trying to set it up for success. So thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Don Campbell?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. If I pixelate a bit, I'm on an undisclosed beach right now, but I'm calling with actually with good stuff. Commendation for two folks. For number one is the Board of Selectmen. Your resolution to being steadfast in the policy that was put in place when I was there, I think is commendable in the face of what's going on and the backlash that you're going to receive. That policy is just, that policy is right. That policy was put in place to protect the people in town and to place no favoritism or any undue influence on any other committees. Now, the second part. This is the second part of commendation. The Micus Brigade is out in full force, absolute full force. And I tell you, meeting after meeting, it is absolutely ridiculous that this army comes at the Board of Selectmen constantly to change this policy that should never be changed unless under most extreme circumstances. Leave it where it is, and it's working. So this is absolute insanity that barrage after barrage of people come in and change it for this, and then they want the biggest problem is they want to paint the Board of Selectmen to look like you're not doing your job. I did that job, folks. I did that job, and I know the hard work that these folks are doing on this board, and I know the constraints they have. You have to accept the policy the way it is, not the way you wish it to be. That's the big difference. The policy is the policy. I've worked with Mitch long enough and every member that's sitting on that board right now to know that every one of them is dedicated to what they do and wants no log jams and wants people appointed and wants this town to function properly. And these attacks have to stop. And I'm calling on Tom Micus to stop the attacks and stop from having these people come meeting after meeting after meeting. It's not going to change. Let it go. Move on. Find ways to fix it and work with the town. Because that's all I ever wanted when I was on the board. I wanted the people to work together. So I apologize for my rant, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator Vieira. Thank you for your indulgence. And as always, it's a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, Don.
Oh, and I apologize.
I'm sorry, Don, you're cut off. Next up is Diane Finch. And unmute her again. Yeah, there you go.
Diane, could you state your name and address the record?
Yes, Diane Finch, 215 Granite Street. I had a little list, but I also need to address what Don Campbell just said. But the first thing is I agree with Jenny completely about how that policy should be written. It made sense. It shows her experience and background in governing in other towns. And I actually still have never seen a reason or any kind of broach of a volunteer trying to monopolize or take too much power. I've never seen it. I've only seen hardworking volunteers on every committee I've been on. So it would really be nice to hear where the problems were that brought that policy forward under Don Campbell. And many of us, he just called it the Micus Brigade. I'd like to tell Don Campbell that I'm an individual and I've been on different committees and I am not a Micus follower. I have my own brain, as do many people or all people on the Green Community Task Force. We know when we're listening to a leader who has institutional knowledge, background on climate change, a strong background on how to make energy more efficient. That was Micus's career. And it's very difficult for us on the Green Community Task Force now to try to make up for that. So Don Campbell, this is directly to you.
Please do not speak directly to him. Please
Okay.
make all your comments directed at me.
Okay, a selectman who calls it the Micus Brigade is the one that came up with this policy that was directly going to impact Tom Micus. He didn't like him, okay? Okay, next, I applaud Dawn Epstein. I don't see her here for applying for Concom. I think that's great, and I think she likely knows how much work it is. I think it would be great if there were 3 appointed, because there is so much work on that committee. I've been on that committee. And there were some things that do need to be resolved, as the selectmen have been saying. But to get, I don't know Dawn, but I applaud her for applying, but I do know of the backgrounds of Nathaniel and Laura, and we need people like that on that committee. And the smaller the committee or commission, the harder it's going to be for the individuals. Even with help from the council, a good agent gets a lot done with a lot of background and knowledge, and it's going to be very hard for even 7 people. They're going to have to divide up the work. So I do hope that what I think Sarah or Denise said is that you'll be looking at all 3 candidates over the next few weeks, please. And I just have to say one more time, I hope I never hear again that there is a amicus brigade. We are all individuals and we all have our goals. Okay, the Green Committee brought in almost $1 million to Rockport now, and we're kicking out the very person who has made a lot of this happen. Yes, he could drop another committee and not be on 4 anymore, but what was the real reason behind coming up with the policy? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify, we didn't kick anyone out. So next up is Z.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Z Seppel on 92 Granite Street. I have 2 responses, one to you, Ross, or Chairman Brackett, and one to Don Campbell.
Please keep it
earlier-
directed at me, please.
Yeah, well, it will be directed to you. Don't worry about that.
Good.
It's all I can do to not direct it to you. The fact of the matter is, there are 4 town offices that are prohibited from holding any other town office. That's the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, the DPW Commissioners, and the School Committee. By the town's charter, they are prohibited, members of those organizations only, from holding other town offices, elected or appointed. So the question goes back to Tom Meekus, who's an elected member of the Planning Board. Yes, he may have some authority or influence that other people don't have, but it's not against the law for him to be appointed to any other committee or 500 committees if he would like to. That's up to the Board of Selectmen to make that distinction, but it's nothing illegal about it. And I will say this, because it did happen. About 5 or 7, 8 years ago, the town selectmen appointed a overnight parking ban committee. And Don Campbell, who was technically ineligible to be on that committee, advocated for himself and fought to put himself on that committee. If he is going to take that type of stand that he could be on any kind of appointed committee when the charter says specifically that he's prohibited, then Tom Meekus deserves a chance at any committee he wants to be on. That's all I'm going to say. We either have a rule of law in this town or we don't. And I believe we don't.
Thank you, Z.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, we have a policy. That's the only, we're not going by any law. We're going by the policy that the selectmen voted on last year. And any more public comment? All right, we'll be moving on to update from the Greater Cape Ann Community Collaboration. And I believe Board of Health member Ruth George is here, and she's really been spearheading this whole issue for us over the whole COVID pandemic. So I commend her for that, and I'll let her take over. There she is. You can get her unmuted.
Thank you, Ross. Yeah, it's been a long time. We've been working really hard. As you remember, when COVID started, we could have vaccines in the town that the town Board of Health could have, but we after about a year, that stopped, and the governor decided that it needed to be pushed out faster with bigger clinics, and they restricted the local boards of health from having vaccine. I think each one of us, I myself called Bruce, Tara, and Ann Margaret, I think we all did. And that was the beginning of trying to get something local. There had been something local up in the Salisbury area of communities working together, and we sort of wanted to model after that. Remember back then they had this clinics at Gillette Stadium, Fenway, and Doubletree with long, long lines. So we needed local. We applied with Bruce's help. We all applied with Rachel Lee, the lead from Hamilton, as spearheading it and being our lead. And we got approved by the DPH to have our own group. We called it Greater Cape Ann Community Collaborative. Rockport's part, we had to have a 2 people on it. I was the nurse leader on it, and also Mitch Vieira. And we have always been a completely volunteer committee. We have one nurse who got paid for a few days. She did the clinic, but otherwise everyone else is volunteer. And we have done clinics in the beginning when we were having to draw up every vaccine, and there were many of them. There were 3, Moderna, Pfizer, and J&J. We had to get there 2 hours early just to draw up the medicines, and then do a 3-hour clinic, all volunteers. So I just want to give a shout out to them, because they have done such a great job. All the volunteers who've helped Rockport in the clinic. And also a big shout out to DPW. During the winter, they plowed the area. The police kept it one way. I'd call every other Saturday morning or every Saturday morning, and they'd make it a one-way street, so we had extra parking. The ambulance was there ready to respond if we had any emergency. We're starting back up our clinics probably every 2 weeks. Our next one is going to be September 24th. And with the new vaccines coming out, we will have another big push. But Rachel Lee has helped with every clinic with me in Rockport, and she's got some slides that she's going to talk about Gcac. So Rachel.
Hi, thank you, Select Chair Brackett, Rockport Select Board members, and Town Administrator Vieira for inviting me and Ruth to talk with you guys about the regional COVID vaccination effort. 9 towns got together to work on one goal, which was to vaccinate our residents with COVID vaccine. And it's been quite amazing to work with such amazing people, including, of course, Ruth. The mission of the Greater Cape Ann Community Coalition is to be a consistent, safe, and knowledgeable provider of COVID-19 vaccine and vaccine information for all of our community members. And by consolidating our resources and shared expertise, we are able to meet our community's needs effectively, efficiently, and equitably. As Ruth talked about, at one point, local boards of health were blocked from access to COVID vaccine. But because 9 and eventually 10 towns banded together, they couldn't say no anymore. So we have been, since we have formed Gcac, we have been able to get whatever vaccine we need whenever we need it, which has been quite a boon for us. Next slide, please. Okay, as of yesterday, total doses that all of our clinics have administered are 16,023. Pretty amazing. Next, please. We do recommend that people go to capeannclinic.com to register ahead of time, but we are also able to register people as walk-ins. We want to make these clinics as easy to attend and get a vaccine as possible. So we welcome walk-ins, although of course it is easier for planning if people can register ahead of time. Next slide, please. Over the course of a year and a half, we've administered vaccines at a total of 33 sites. And I believe Rockport has about 5 different sites that you've administered vaccine at, Ruth?
More, I think.
More, yeah. I mean, Ruth and her team Rockport have been treasures to you all. I just want you all to know how lucky you are to have her on your team. Next slide, please. So I was talking about the 33 different sites. So this is just, you can kind of flip through them. We don't have to read them all, but yep, go to the next one. We might actually start seeing all the Rockport, Rockport Community Center, Rockport Elementary School, Rockport Harbor Lights Apartments, Rockport High School, Rockport Housing Authority, Rockport Police Station, Rockport Town Hall. Those are all clinics that Ruth organized and got her people together to work on. And you can just go past that one, please. Thank you. So our first appointment that we were able to administer through our regional group was June 7th, 2021. So yeah, I guess we've been going for about 14 months now. In those 14 months, we've done over 16,000 vaccines. Next slide, please. So I put together this slideshow earlier for our thank you lunch that we had. So I thought that maybe the select board would like to see some of these memories that we shared. So Sally Rich is a board member in Essex. She also has been a volunteer vaccinator. So let's see. I just want to say, you know, I think we all shared that we were just so excited when we can finally start vaccinating people, because we all saw that this was the way to finally end the pandemic. And people were so happy to be coming in and doing their part and getting protected. And they were very grateful and appreciative of us being there. And I have to say, doing the clinics, I mean, there's just so much love there. It's just a wonderful experience. Next slide, please. Rosemary Kennedy is a select board member from Hamilton who gave this memory of her. I don't think we're gonna read all of these. Next, we do have one from, okay, that's Mary Beth is a public health nurse from Wenham. Next, Peggy Chick, she's one of Team Rockport. I truly enjoyed working with all of my high school friends and new friends I've met through Gcac. Also reconnecting with so many people in the community and knowing we are making a difference by keeping everyone safer during the pandemic. Peggy and Ruth and her team have known each other since preschool. Ruth, is that correct?
Yep, most of us.
Yeah, many of this group are retired nurses, and they have all donated so many hours of their time to provide clinics and vaccine to your community. Next page, please. Here's a nice long quote from Barbara. She wasn't able to make it to the luncheon, but I really liked what she said, which was somewhere in the middle here. If you have a license to jab, you should use it. Well, Barbara, who is the vice chair on this Board of Health, she has told me that she works regularly 50 hours a week. And for quite a number of months, every Saturday, she was coming and jabbing people's arms, in addition to her full-time job and being on the Board of Health. So I think some other people were talking about the volunteers. I mean, I've just been inspired by all of you. So next page, please. All right, so we started off with just 3 vaccines, and we started off with vaccinating our seniors. And as time has gone on, we've been able to vaccinate younger and younger people. And finally, now we're able to vaccinate everyone 6 months of age and up. And whereas before we only had 3 vaccines available, we now have 3 different types of vaccine for Pfizer, 3 different types of vaccine for Moderna. We do have Johnson & Johnson, but we will be phasing that out. But we are bringing on Novavax, which is a brand new, newly approved vaccine, and which will be our RNA vaccine alternative for people who don't wish to have an RNA vaccine. Additionally, we have already done our pre-orders to get the new bivalent boosters of Pfizer and Moderna, which should be coming out in September. So whereas before we were just doing a few different types of vaccine, now we're doing many more. But luckily we are also all that much more experienced with the vaccines and also working with each other to be able to administer these vaccines safely to the public. Next page, please. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about how Gcac is set up really quickly. So Gcac, we don't have a budget, and it's just each town pays for their own expenses. Town of Hamilton and we order and we store the vaccines at the town of Hamilton, and then the town of Ipswich handles all of the insurance disbursements, and they'll be taking a small percentage of the insurance disbursements to pay for the staff that will be needed to disperse the money. This allows the 9 towns in Gcac to run COVID clinics with minimal expenses, investment, and overhead. Ruth did say that in Rockport, most of your vaccinators are volunteers, but that is not the case at all of our clinics. We do, of course, always welcome volunteers, but vaccinators are paid anywhere between $30 to $45 an hour based on credentials, and that was agreed on by the steering committee early on in the very beginning. So all of the clinics, all of the towns have the same pay schedule, and that was in order to not unfairly try to get people to work for their town instead of other towns. And it might sound like a lot to some people, but I do have to say, I think Curative was paying $60 an hour, which was incredible amount of money to be paying someone to give someone a vaccine. We are also grateful for all the MRC volunteers, and then also, of course, the volunteers who are homegrown in Rockport. Each town pays their own vaccinators, and before we had started getting reimbursed, you guys were using CARES Act money and ARPA money. Now we are starting to finally see the disbursements coming to us, and given that Rockport has administered over 3,285 vaccines, and each vaccine earns approximately $30, that means Rockport will be receiving around $98,000 for their COVID clinics. And for Hamilton, we have a revolving fund to handle COVID and flu clinic funds and expenses, and that makes our future running of clinics sustainable and self-funding. And if I don't know if you already have that in place.
We do.
For Rockport, you do? Okay, great. If you already have it in place, perfect. So it'll be a nice sustainable thing. It's not costing your town anything to run these clinics. It's actually giving you money. So we're grateful for your ability to do that. And then next, I think we have just one more slide. Rockport's COVID clinics have served people from across Cape Ann and beyond. And actually, I want to say that that's one of the requirements that we had starting up as a regional group, was that we had to be willing to vaccinate everyone in the Commonwealth. And we have continued to do that. I know Rockport has been a source of vaccine for many people living in other towns nearby, including Gloucester. And I didn't mean George, I meant Ruth George and her team have done an amazing job serving the citizens of Rockport, and I just want to thank you very much. And so that's that.
If you want to go right into Eastern Essex Regional Public Health Collaborative through Ken,
Or-
unless if there's any questions from the board for Ruth or Rachel now for that, I'll take
No,
those.
no, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yep.
I want to a heartfelt thank you to all the people that volunteered for to give the vaccinations at the community house. It was great, and not only it went all over the place to Millbrook Park and places like that. So thank you. It didn't go unnoticed, and I know the town is very grateful. So thank you, especially Ruth George.
Yeah. Yay, Ruth.
Thanks.
Go ahead. So if you'd like me to talk about the regional public health.
Yep.
Okay, so Mitch, I sent you an email shortly before. Oh, thank you. So if you'd like to know about our Eastern Essex Regional Public Health Coalition, please go to our public health training website. It is at hamiltonma.gov/PH training/. Please click on who we are. Eastern Essex Regional Public Health Coalition includes Rockport, Essex, Hamilton, and Wenham. And it was formed by a public health excellence grant that was offered by the Office of Local and Regional Health. The Office of Local and Regional Health, and there are links on this website that you can click on both of those images, and you can learn more about the Office of Local and Regional Health. The Office of Local and Regional Health was formed, I believe, back in 2020, and it was formed in response to the Blueprint for Public Health Excellence. The Blueprint for Public Health Excellence basically found that in Massachusetts, we have 351 different local boards of health. All are locally funded. As you can imagine, some small towns such as Rockport, Hamilton, Essex, and Wenham have a difficult time meeting the statutory requirements while funding it with just local taxes. So the Office of Local and Regional Health put out a call for applicants for their Public Health Excellence Grant. Our 4 towns came together, and we now have a grant that goes for 3 years. It started last year, and then it will also renew at least one more time. They have funding, the state has funding for at least 5 years, so that will be 2 complete grant cycles. Okay, so, and right now, things that the grant has paid for is me, and now a new regional social worker that was just hired last week. If you can click on to the second tab there, yep. It'll pay for the regional social worker. It also will pay for professional development and professional organizational memberships for all public health employees in our 4 towns in order to increase our credentialing and our training and bring us up to standard levels. So funds are available through the grant. Obviously, you should use your Board of Health, Health Department budget first, but beyond what you already have budgeted, because this is new, because there is more training than you would normally do in a year, there are funds available for each and every public health employee in Rockport. And then please go to the next one. So this, okay, so this is a big chart that we have, and it has a lot of links to it. This chart, it was basically a copy of what is in the Blueprint for Public Health Excellence. It has all the different positions that are in our health departments. It has, at this point, it says that these are required, recommended, and then what's the other thing up? Recommended and suggested. Right now, all of this is just recommended, but eventually these things will be, they're going to want to see us actually meeting these requirements. So we have a little bit of a head start because we've put this together. You can see what they're looking for now and in the future, and you can see the trainings that they want us all to be doing, including the Board of Health. So this is a great tool for all 4 of our towns and all of our public health employees to go to click on the trainings and to go ahead and complete them, and then they can send their certificates of completion to their health departments to work on getting their certifications up to standard. The Office of Local and Regional Health will be sending out a capacity assessment to each and every health department. And it is going to be basically looking at each position and seeing how much training and seeing if the towns are already meeting the statutory requirements or not. And I think I'm finished with my 5 minutes. Thank you.
Any questions for Rachel? If none, I'll thank you both, and thank you
for
everything you've
letting
done,
me share all
Rachel,
of
and
that with you.
and
I
Ruth.
would
Thank
just
you
add,
for
oh,
spearheading
sorry, go
this.
ahead.
I was just gonna thank Ruth again for, she really has spearheaded getting the town of Rockport vaccinated from day one. She's gone
Yeah.
nonstop, so. I
Another
appreciate
piece
that.
to
She
add
was
with
the
Ruth.
vaccination guru.
She was. She also did nearly all of the homebound visits.
Yep.
There were dozens and dozens of homebound visits, and Ruth was almost single-handedly carried all of those out.
She's
Which
not done yet, so.
it
She's
is a
an
challenge. So.
inspiration. She's a real treasure for Rockport.
Thanks, Rachel.
She certainly is.
And the recommendations and the materials that Rachel shared here, as Ruth will attest, the Board of Health is committed to following through on these, and several of the members have a lot of this background from their jobs, but they're committed to carrying through and getting everybody up to the same standard, particularly the overall public health training courses, the foundations courses. So it's a really good place to be for the board right now.
Just one other thing. We've got, the town has 2 other scheduled flu clinics. We have one, there are 2 Fridays in a row in September, and they're, the one for seniors is at the community house from 9 to 12, flu clinic on the 16th. And that's scheduled in color, just like we did for COVID vaccines. And then there's another one for town employees at the police station the following Friday, the 23rd, from 10 to 12. So we want to start getting those up and running too. And Chassie Robinson is doing those, and Rachel and I are going to help with that too.
Thank
Awesome.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Alrighty, next up, we have elections update from Town Clerk Melanie Waddell. See her over there, if we can get her unmuted.
Now, there we go.
Yep.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. and Board. Here to talk about elections. We are well underway for the state primary. The state primary will be next Tuesday, September 6th, and the poll will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. We have been doing vote by mail since late July. We've sent out about 1,300 ballots. Probably more than half of those have already been returned. Started early voting last Saturday, and it's all week this week in the town clerk's office during regular business hours. So anybody who wants to vote early can come into the office and vote here. The voter registration deadline has passed for the primary elections. So anybody who hadn't gotten registered or wanted to change their party or anything. That just can't happen. Again, they could do it now, but it wouldn't be effective until the election in November. And also the vote by mail application deadline has passed. One thing I wanted to note about vote by mail, there was a lot of applications that came in incomplete. People who are unenrolled, I think, because in the past, party would change if you chose Democratic ballot. It's no longer the case. So often we were receiving applications where people did not indicate what ballot they wanted. We did as much as we could, either trying to email or make phone calls to try to help them correct that. Otherwise, we had to just enter their vote by mail ballot for the state election. So some people might not be getting their vote by mail ballot for the primary, and it's because the application wasn't completed. So at this point, we sent out the last batch this morning because the deadline for those was last night. If anybody's interested in learning where their ballot is, you can Google Track My Ballot Massachusetts, and it will bring you to the Secretary of State's website. You can enter your first name, your last name, your street address, and it will tell you the status of your vote by mail ballot. It will tell you the status of your application. So if you didn't, if for some reason your application didn't come through, you can vote all week this week, like I said, during regular business hours or on election day. And vote by mail ballots will be accepted either in the drop box in the town hall parking lot or here in the town hall right until 8 p.m. on election day. Yeah, so I guess with vote by mail, we've had 60 people come in and vote in person. With vote by mail being 1,300 ballots sent out, I mean, we're pretty on track to where we were for the last state primary. In the last 3 straight state primary elections, we've kind of doubled voters. So I'm hoping that vote by mail and all of the early voting that's been mandated by the state really gets people to vote. It's really provided ample opportunity to. So
No.
I don't know if there's any questions from anyone.
Yeah. Any questions from the board?
We're all set.
Selectman Murphy?
Two elections
Go ahead, Melanie, I'm sorry.
Did we lose her?
Melanie, are you still there?
I think we lost her.
Okay. No, I commend
there she
the town clerk's office. Anytime you can make it easier for people to vote, it's a good thing. You know, we get mail by, you can put it in the mail, and also early voting, and then the day of the voting. So thank you to all the election workers and so forth. That's great. So
yeah, I think this
we
is
had
our
2
first
trainings,
election.
and
There she is.
yeah, we've trained 36 election officers. We did 2 over the last 2 weeks. So everybody's trained and ready to go. I'm actually really excited about it. So.
Any other questions from the board?
No, thanks,
Mel- Melanie, is this your first election?
As the top,
it is.
top dog.
It is. All right.
It
I'm
is.
sure you'll nail it.
Yeah, it's been, like I said, I'm actually really excited. Everything is going as planned, and it should be very successful. So
Terrific.
All right. If there's no more questions. Thank you, Melody. All right. Next up, we are moving on to the consider Conservation Commission interview and appointment. We have Don Epstein here. Before we start, I'm just going to talk about the process that I'm doing. So as mentioned before and multiple times, the committee has a little bit of turmoil in it. So I chose with Vice Chair Wilkinson, we sat down, discussed how we want to do it, and we figured the best attack would be to stagger the appointments. That way we're not throwing in 3 new personalities at the same time. So hopefully the board can get back off its feet. It's going to have some guidance from town council, as we said, and we just want to take it, you know, I'm going to see how the first meeting or 2, depending on how many we can get in before the next meeting, and how those go. If those go good, I'll just go with the next 2 candidates all at once. But I'm still going to decide as I'm going to attend the 2 meetings and watch what's going on. So that's the reason why we're doing this. I know there's been some questions on why we chose to do it this way. And, you know, again, as stated, Don was one of the first candidates to come forward and attend the, mandatory meetings we had, because you couldn't attend meetings because they weren't going on. So we had town council step in and explain what really went on with Conservation Commission, how that committee functions, because there were some rumors going on that it was only 2 hours a month, and that was completely wrong. So with that, I'll open it up to Dawn, and she can tell us why she wanted to join the committee and why she put her name forward.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me here tonight. Look forward to answering your questions. I came forward because I read actually on Facebook, I think it was Nathaniel Mulcahy who posted that the board had dissolved. When I first moved to town, which was about 5 years ago, for the second time in my life, I put my name in and hadn't heard anything. And then we got distracted and other things had come up. And when Nathaniel had mentioned that need, I thought, oh, I've got to step in again. And so I responded immediately. I grew up on a pond, and it was also a new development in the area. So I kind of grew up right at the edge between new construction and this beautiful resource. It's now a protected area, completely protected national, like state park. Where I was able to grow up watching turtles and stalking herons and that sort of thing. I called them pterodactyls. And I have a love for this area, this kind of marshy area, water buffer zones. But I also understand that construction, especially now that we have such a housing crisis, is also an important thing. And so I think that it requires a careful balance to both observe, to uphold the law and to make sure that these areas are protected according to the strictest guidelines available to us or the laws available to us, but also to do this in collaboration so that we're not unduly affecting construction projects that need to happen, that want to happen. So that, I think it's the best possible thing is if these groups all work together and we come up with a balance that's healthy for the community, and also that meets the necessity that we are facing of protecting our wetlands.
Thank you, Donna. I'm going to open the interview up to questions. I'm going to start first and ask if you have an opinion on a matter that's could be differential from a regulation, and the regulation's quite black and white on what to do. How would you go about, talking about that matter or proceeding forward?
There are lots of different ways that we could be different from the regulation. The regulation is black and white, and that's the limit really of what we can require. Sometimes best practices are ahead of the regulations, and so that's an education opportunity. That's just a chance to say, hey, that's all we can ask of you to do, but here are some of the things that people are doing now in a condition similar to yours, and to make that a communication process and an education process. There's no way that you can demand that it happen because that's outside the authority of the board, but it can be like I said, a collaboration.
All right, Selectman Lillian.
Yes, Don, I appreciate the middle position which you have described, trying to balance the environment with the need for residential development or industrial development, if that were ever possible in Rockport, but probably isn't. But certainly residential development, there is a need to look at both in a way that allows for going forward as opposed to only marking time. I was wondering whether or not you either had or were interested in taking the certificate training program offered by the state of Massachusetts with regard to conservation. Is that something you have considered, or have you already done that?
I have not done it yet. I would very much like to do that. My training has been, I went to the Landscape Institute and studied particularly wetland plant communities and riparian zones and that sort of thing. So I have a training education in that. I also studied with Scott Horsley. I studied wetlands and being able to map an area of interest and understanding the Wetlands Preservation Act and also the Clean Water Act. And I also, as part of the Landscape Institute, contributed to Portsmouth, New Hampshire's master plan on the South Mill Pond area, which is an estuary right on the ocean. So I have some background, but I would absolutely love to take this course and go as deeply as possible in furthering that background. Ideally, at some point, I want to be able to be qualified to be an agent. I wouldn't put myself forward at this point because I don't have that committee experience. I think the other relevant experience that I have is when I lived in Concord. I was part of the Historic Commission, and I was responsible for open space, you know, kind of communicating and being the liaison to our Conservation Commission and the parks groups and that sort of thing. So I have some background that's relevant, but yeah.
All of that speaks well to your interest and possibility of joining this board. And I would encourage you to look at the online training program that you can bring to the state of Massachusetts. That would be good for you and for others too. I am scheduled to start taking it myself, so I encourage you to do it as well.
Yeah, absolutely, we'll do it.
Okay.
Selectwoman Donald?
Yeah, thank you, Don, for stepping forward. It sounds like you're going to be a great addition to the group. I think one of the, you know, Ross touched on one of the challenges, which this maybe heightens the nature of the problem unnecessarily, but it's like how you manage disagreements within a board and other members and find a way to come to a conclusion that is going to serve the Wetland Protection Act and the town bylaws, but also, you know, get the property owner to work with the commission. I guess, how do you approach situations like that where you and other commission members just simply don't see eye to eye on matters?
Well, again, I think it's communication, it's talking, it's working together to try to find common ground. And I don't believe that any situation is completely insoluble. I think that it's possible to reach agreement. There will always be people who are going to be unhappy. They're going to be, you know, uncomfortable. But I think it's possible to build a consensus of what the right path is to go. And I think making sure that what you're doing is within the purview of the group, and not, you know, outside that, not punitive, not, you know, to anybody either on the group or, you know, contentious needlessly. I think it's possible to come up with something that's really good and beautiful for all. I think it's really my passion for. I have a meadow that I've built in my own yard. I think the opportunity to create beautiful natural space is exciting. And so I like to get people enthusiastic about the possibility when you're living on the edge of something that's really a protected area and a special spot. So part of what I like to do is just get people enthusiastic about the mission and, you know, come together in that way. So, you know, each situation is different, but I'm a big believer in communication.
I love your attitude. I think you're going to be a great addition to the commission. And I'm going to follow up with you on your meadow.
Great.
Any other questions? Selectman Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No questions, because I don't want to, some of the questions were already asked and so forth, but I just want to thank you for putting your name forward. I think you'll be a terrific addition to the commission, and certainly well qualified. And I like the fact that you're willing to, you know, do workshops and things of that nature, which is impressive. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh,
something else I didn't mention that I think I'm also a licensed drone pilot. And so one of the things that I offer to the committee is the ability to do an aerial survey of lands that we're looking at.
Fantastic.
Interesting.
Selectwoman Wilkinson, did you?
Welcome, Don. Hi, Don. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
That's so cool that you're a licensed drone pilot. My husband is as well, so I often hear the hum of the drone everywhere I am. But anyway, so I loved my question was going to be about balance, but you answered it actually in your opening comments. And I loved your answer about obviously balancing Wetlands Protection Act, Rockport Wetlands Bylaw with the need for housing and, some, development. And obviously, Rockport, there are a lot of older homes here. They need to be renovated. And, and the need to be reasonable, which I think is really important as well. I actually love that I didn't know that you were on the Historic Commission was it Concord?
In Concord, yes.
Which is really cool. I just wanted to touch on something that came up. I think you were here at the beginning of public comment, and just make sure that you understand that, when we explained about town council helping with the first few meetings, that by no means that it's really to get the commission going and set everyone up for success in terms of a resource, because we don't have an agent, and that by no means at all, like the town administrator said, is it supposed to keep the commission on a short leash. I mean, frankly, the work that the commission is going to have to do, it's going to be a heavy lift, at least at first, because there hasn't been a commission for a few months. And, I just want you to know, just to confirm with you that that's why we're calling in town council.
I completely understand that, and I actually welcome it, especially in the absence of an active agent right now. And I expect that personally, I will learn a great deal from her, and I look forward to that involvement and totally understand the reasons for it.
Great, yeah, and I think it most likely will be the town council who did the kind of overview training that you participated in and she's an amazing resource.
Yeah, it was really helpful. I'm not sure that people understand how crisply all of the communications have to happen, and when reports have to go back in, and when things need to be filed, and all of that, it is a heavy lift, and it is a regulated lift, so that we're in compliance with all of the requirements. And it's an important thing to have that kind of expertise.
Yeah, and I think the last thing, the town wants is to have a false start, right? Where we get new members, but a few new members and reconstitute the current members and then, things go south. I think we really, really want to set everyone up for success, because that's what's good for the town. So I think, honestly, it seems like you have a great attitude, the work. I felt bad that some of the initial postings were like 2 hours a month is all, and I had people messaging me, oh, if you're desperate, I'm really busy. And I'm like, no, this isn't that kind of committee. There are other committees that, an hour or two a month kind of does it, and you can manage it with other, work life commitments. But as I said, this is a heavy lift, and I don't say it to scare people, but just so people know the commitment that it is.
There's the research, there's the site visits, in addition to the meetings, and a lot of work. So I totally understand that. And
great. And I, obviously, I'm sorry that there isn't the commission hasn't been meeting for you to have attended meetings, but frankly, knowing the other members, I think you'll be a great addition.
Thank you. I did attend meetings back in the 80s, late 80s and early 90s. I was a pretty regular attendee back then.
That's great.
So I don't know if that counts for anything, but
I was probably there.
Well, maybe that's why you look familiar.
I was there and I was in diapers, so.
Oh, please.
All
True.
right. Any other questions from the board? And before I entertain a motion, I'm gonna hand it over to Town Administrator Mitch Vieira real
Oh,
quick.
I just wanted to add, Mitch can confirm. I think we've discussed actually requiring all members to get the certification, right? And that we'll pay
Correct.
for it. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I just wanted to touch on here that my recommendation to you is that certainly it's a condition of appointment, completing it in a year now, and that my intention on your behalf is to move forward with the other three members who are on the commission with that same requirement that if it's not completed, to complete it within a year, and to take a refresher for those who have done it and it's been more than a few years, to ensure that we're calibrating it. We'll also additionally ensure council has some training for everyone, but the town will cover the cost at an upcoming selectmen's meeting you will see a request to access funds from the Wetland Protection Fund, which the commission has done on an annual basis to draw out money for this purpose to cover these courses.
Should
So
we,
if
should we vote that into the record, or can we
Well,
do that
if,
at a later
if,
time?
what was it, Selectwoman Donnelly wants to include the membership part for the appointment, and then Mitch will reach out to the other members of the Conservation Commission.
In the
You mean
motion?
You want
Yeah,
me
in
to
the
include
motion.
that? You want me to include that in the motion, Ross? Is
Yeah, that she finishes it within 1 year.
Okay. I move that the board appoint Dawn Epstein as a member of the Conservation Commission with the term to expire June 30th, 2025, subject to the board committee commission membership policy and completion of the MACC Commissioner Certification Series by June 30th, 2023.
Second.
And any other discussion? Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Loya,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Congratulations, Don. Got a heavy lift in front of you, so.
Welcome, Don. Thank you.
Well, we're all here to help though, if you need us, you know, and Selectman Loya is the liaison if you have any questions.
Thank you
I'm
very
more than
much.
glad to help you out in any way I can.
I appreciate that. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Mitch, you gonna reach out to the other members to let them know?
Yes, I'm drafting a quick email now to just let everybody know that there is a quorum again, and that we'll be in touch to work through the list to get them restarted.
All right, thank you. All right, next up on the agenda is the consent agenda, which is appointment of minutes, if any, and consider approval of sidewalk and curbing construction contract. If I have a motion for that. You, that was Selectman Murphy.
I'm sorry, I didn't print it out. I only had,
All right,
my
I'll read
printer
it.
was, can someone take that? I'm sorry.
I can read that, Brian.
I can do it. I've got it open. I move that the board approve all non-held items on the consent agenda.
and
Second.
do I have a second? All right, any questions or discussion? Roll call vote. Selectman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectwoman Wilkinson, Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Loya,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries, and on to our actions list, which is stances. Fall, item 1 is stances for fall town meeting warrant articles. I'll turn that over to Town Administrator Mitch Vieira.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to share my screen and put up the article stance list. And then I'll double back to another document relating to particular financial articles. Okay, so the standard article stance list before you this evening. You've all, of course, reviewed, approved, and seen the warrant. The highlighted items in the column under BOS certainly are need a stance, and whether that's support, does not support, or takes no stance from the board. The highlighted items in the other columns are where Government and Bylaw and Finance Committee have opined on theirs. FinCom offered their support this afternoon for articles related to them. They discussed any others and opted to not take any further stance. So all of them are in front of you for your consideration this evening on whether you wish to support, not support, or take no stance. So again, this just mirrors what is in the warrant. I'm going to pull up the detail for articles A, B, and F. Okay, oh, hang on. Make sure I have the right document, sorry. Okay. All right, great, I do. All right, so the detail for Article A is prior year bills. Every year, we usually have at least one of those. Sometimes we've got several, sometimes we have just one. In this particular case, just based on timing, you have 5 of them in front of you. So these are for goods and services that we have already incurred or received from FY22. In all of these cases, the bills have come in late, and we need to provide for funding for those. And the method at this particular point is through the prior year bill process at town meeting. So the first one, $1,800, $1,826.20 for the fire department for software relating to their required reporting. $168.90 from Granite Pier for service for materials from Wolf Hill. The next one, $1,016.50. Selectmen, the bill from Trident, our insurance carrier, arrived late for portions of 2 of the deductibles that the town owes for 2 legal matters. As the board is aware, we have $10,000 deductible for cases that are covered by insurance. So these are progress payments for those. And forest fire, 78.48.12 and 31.51.95. So the bills came late, and because the bills came in so late, we could not encumber or charge back to FY22. So as you're aware, Finance Committee released funding at the end of FY22, approximately $40,000 for gear and materials for the forest fire department. So what they've used and been using to battle woodland acres. So this one is, these last 2 are tied into a transfer from Article B, which I'll get to in a moment to cover those costs. But again, all of these are for services and materials that we've received. We just need to make good on the bills for those through this process. Article B is FY23 transfers. So the first one, Chief Horvath was at Finance Committee this afternoon to go over this. Some of you are aware already that the generator at the police station is aging, and we're at a point where we can no longer get parts for it. We're not able to secure a service contract to maintain that generator. And as you're all aware, that is the lifeblood of our communication center. 911 calls routed through there, all of our public safety dispatching, everything functions out of that building. So we really are not in a position to have a generator fail at that particular location. If the generator is kicking on, it's for a reason. We need to be certain at that location that it kicks on without issue. It continues to be tested weekly, but there are some issues developing with it, including the wiring that comes into it from the building. It is fraying as it enters the ductwork to go into the building. And the lead time for a replacement generator is significant. We've gotten 2 quotes from the state bid list. We sought 3, 2 responded. And one is 26 to 32 weeks out from order, and one is 52 weeks out from order. So significant lead time. So action needs to be considered for this particular town meeting as we're going into it. In this particular case, the source of funding happened to work out. DPW closed out the new leadership in that department has been diligently working through closing out capital accounts where the projects are done. They certified to the accountant's office last month that the Bedrock Well capital project is complete and no further funding is needed. That's $110,000. We anticipate the generator to be the generator and the electrical service to hook it up and connect everything to be at least that amount of money. So at this point, instead of repurposing the request to you, and the same request was given to Finance Committee, which they have endorsed, transferring that funding to a police generator replacement capital account so that we can get that process started. We need to get an order in for a generator for that facility to get that taken care of. We simply can't take the risk of not being able to get parts or to have a failure at that location. And again, then that amount may end up being a bit more. We're working towards that. And if it is more, depending on how much more, it'll either be covered by the operating expense in that department or a request for reserve fund transfer from the finance committee will be sought. They were again aware of all that, and they have endorsed this particular request. The next couple of requests are drawing from excess levy. So 13,000 to the ambulance reserve fund. So the numbers used in the budget based on prior year's calls for service. We did not meet the expected amount of money needed to fully fund that department. It came up 13,000 short based on a very significant increase in non-billable calls for service. So a billable call for service is when we're transporting someone. If you're not transported, it is not a billable call. So billable calls range anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 typically for a call for service when you are brought to the hospital, either Addison or Beverly. Billable calls, 9 times out of 10 are lift assists or calls for service. The police department has assumed for several months primary on lift assists. And that's exactly as it sounds. Someone calls in, they need help getting from a bed to a chair or vice versa, or they've fallen and they need some assistance getting back up or getting to a safer location. The police go in on that as the primary. And in some cases, ambulance does need to be called out based on what the officer finds when they arrive. If somebody just needs to shuffle from a chair to the bed, the officers assist them with that and they're on their way. Unfortunately, there was an uptick at a couple of very particular locations where that wasn't the case, and it did require a number of very specific ambulance calls. So unfortunately, that threw the estimate out of whack. $30,000 from the property to the property and casualty insurance line. So the final bill came in after the budget was set. That is again based on what we put out there. So we did see a significant increase in the cost for our cybersecurity. Last year, we had increased the level of protection that we have for the town. There were only 2 firms that were interested in bidding on that, which is pretty typical, according to our insurance agent. They named their price. So we have an increase to address there. The $12,000 to forest fire equipment, that plus what is already in that operating line listed will address what is up in Article A. So these 2 amounts, that'll close that out. That's again our mechanical way of needing to close those accounts out. And then $5,000 to the Finance Committee reserve. So the source of funding for those is officially listed as excess levy. In reality, what that is the final determination on state aid. As you're all well aware, the state took an exceedingly long time to finalize their budget. When they finally did, it resulted in an increase for the town of approximately $60,000. Based on the unrestricted general government aid, which was probably the most significant increase. So utilizing that to address these particular areas, property and casualty is something that will be part of that base that's expected. That's not going to get any cheaper. The reserve, obviously we've addressed ambulance, we've addressed forest fire. Moving that $5,000 into Finance Committee reserve instead of simply leaving it as levy sitting there unused. Moving it into the Finance Committee reserve ensures that it's available should the need arise through the Finance Committee's reserve process. And the rest of the transfers are really the final step relating to bringing in all of our vehicle maintenance in-house to the DPW. As you were aware and approved throughout the budget process, a second mechanic position. And our current mechanic foreman, he has assumed basically oversight of fleet services. So all vehicles now, the first stop for repairs, service, etc., is through DPW. We expect that will result in a very large overall savings for us. So the step to kind of get things cleaned up for that is to transfer the vehicle maintenance funding from the individual departments into a decentralized vehicle maintenance line within DPW. So right now, DPW carries out the work. This will ensure that they have the money in their account to pay the bill without having it have to go through a circuitous process through a different department. Each of the departments listed there, we did leave a small amount of money in each of those lines in case there are some small incidentals that they need to get relating to the vehicles. But overall, these transfers will be moved into that centralized garage vehicle maintenance account. And then Article F, the specifics relating to Article F, it is still subject to final ratification by the board and the selectmen and the union. But for the first year, these are the first year costs associated with it. The law requires that the first year of funding for a collective bargaining agreement be approved at town meeting. So the total of those three split accounts is $74,168.80. And this these two collective bargaining agreements cover between 60 and 70 people. Covers the COLA increase, covers licensing increases, longevity, and clothing allowances. So the MOA will be in front of the board, but again, because of our compressed timeline leading into the fall and not wanting to hold this until the spring, you have this in front of you. The breakout between the three different funds is because to come up with the amount of money needed for each person, we use the same distribution that we use for their salary. So somebody may be assigned to a particular department and 1/3 of the salary is general, 1/3 is water, 1/3 sewer. We use that same formula to come up with what's needed to meet the contractual obligations for that particular year. So that's what you see here. So that is A, B, and F with the financial provisions. Let me switch back over to the stance list. Okay. So that addresses A, B, and F, which are again, the particular financial items. The CPC items are listed here. Articles C through E8 are listed here. G is the non-binding residential tax exemption. And then H through N are the government and bylaw submissions relating to the revisions to the Code of Bylaws. First one being the change of this board's name from Board of Selectmen to Select Board. And that also includes the petition to the legislature to get that corrected in the charter and validate it on the appropriate legal level. Changes to elected, this particular elected board requires that special legislation. Changes in each of the articles, Chapter 1 amendments 2, 3, and 7. And then general authorization to government and bylaw to standardize citations, names, state, federal, local departments in the bylaws. And then N is the ministerial article correcting all of the grammar, capitalization, punctuation, spelling, typos, things of that nature, without having to bring every single period, comma, et cetera, back to the meeting. So that's the rundown. So it is certainly up to the board now how you wish to proceed as far as support, do not support, or take no stance. It may perhaps be helpful to take these in chunks for your consideration. And so I would say if that is your desire, you may wish to consider Articles A and B first.
All right, if we have a motion for A and B, I'll entertain that.
Sure. Mr. Chair, I move that the board support Articles A and B on the September 12th, 2022 town meeting warrant.
I'll second it.
And any discussion on these matters? If not, I'll go right into roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries.
Mitch, can I ask a question before I do the next group?
Sure.
Am I okay to vote? Do I need to recuse myself on the CPC if the Evans Field was my application?
Yes, so we'll take those one at a time just to
Okay.
accommodate that.
Okay.
I think you can take C and D together.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, I move that the board support Article C and D on the September 12th, 2022 town meeting warrant.
I'll second that.
Any questions, comments? Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries.
Great. So why don't, should I just recuse myself from the CPC one?
So it's up to you. You can recuse from all of them, or you could recuse just from the second one.
Oh,
It's
okay.
Your
Okay.
choice.
Okay. And then we'll just have to make it clear that I just recused myself because it was my application.
Sure.
So, Mr. Chair, I move that the board support Article E, numbers number 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 on the September 12th, 2022 town meeting warrant.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Nope.
I have one question. What's the rule for CPC on the church steeple? Is that go the same way as the windows we had?
Yeah, so they have to go through the same test to make a determination on what is allowable and what is not allowable. So non-religious parts of it are allowable. The CPC funds have supported, I think, at least 2 other steeple projects over the last few years. So that has been something that has been previously determined to be allowable through that process.
Okay. Any other comments? Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. If we want to have someone make the motion for number 2.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Selectmen approve number 2 for the September fall town meeting.
Second.
Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
I'm
Recuse.
sorry, I'll recuse myself.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries.
Great. And then I'm gonna do, Mr. Chair, I move that the board support Article F on the September 12th, 2022 town meeting warrant.
Do I have a
Second.
second? Roll call. Vote. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, roll call votes. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. And are we gonna are you going to G next?
Yeah, I was gonna, this is just my opinion, obviously. Mr. Chair, I move that the board vote not to support Article G on the September 12th, 2022 town meeting warrant.
Second.
So for discussion purpose, I would say as a non-binding article, we take a
No
no
stance.
stance because it's we're kind of getting the flavor of the town. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks. I feel like if we want to get a flavor of the town for this, I mean, it's a resident that's looking for it, but still it comes to us to get the feel of the flavor, that we don't take a stance on it, so we don't influence it in any way. I don't know if anyone else feels that way.
I'll
just-
support that.
I feel like with these, I totally understand what you're saying. I just feel like with these, people come to us for guidance, and I support having it on. I fully support having it on the warrant, and I fully support voting on it. I just feel like people are gonna say, well, what do the selectmen feel?
Yeah,
Like,
I agree. I think they're gonna be looking for direction. So I think we should vote on it.
All right. Any other discussion?
But I get what you're saying, Ross. I mean, what we could do,
Yeah.
we could vote a stance, and then say, but we look forward to hear, you know what I mean? We look forward to seeing what town meeting has to say, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to obviously make any commitment to anyone because it's a non-binding. But I also feel that if we don't take a stance, that it could be twisted.
Yeah.
Just, you know, to say that the board is waiting to hear what the town has to say, which I don't think that's the case in this situation.
All right. Any other comments? Seeing none, roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett is gonna vote no, just because of my stance of no stance, so motion still carries 4-1.
And I do think whoever speaks on that should explain it, that we are looking, you know, we're looking to hear what town meeting has to say about it. Okay, ready for the rest?
Yep.
We can do the rest together. Mr. Chair, I move that the Board of Selectmen support Articles H through N on the September 12th, 2022 town meeting warrant.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments? Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries. All right. So,
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much. This will all be added into the voters booklet once that is produced. Stop the share. Okay, and that's it for stances. Ready for the next one whenever you are, Mr. Chair.
alrighty, go right ahead and start the process. We have action list number 2, approval of police officer assignments for state primary election.
I have a motion to propose.
All right,
I
go right
move
ahead.
that the board approve the police officer assignments as determined by the chief of police for September 6, 2022 state primary election. Further, the chief of police is authorized to substitute an officer at a designated location if the need arises, with notice to the town administrator and town clerk.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
And before we go on, we'll have Mitch, you just want to talk about it for a minute?
Sure, Mr. Chair, thank you. So this is a new requirement under the Votes Act that passed. It does now require, instead of simply what we've done forever, which is ensure that there's an officer at every poll, the chief just assigns them, they go through their normal hiring process for it. The law now requires that the selectmen make that final determination on it. So it's somewhat of a ministerial function because we have processes internally for individuals going for that overtime and those details. But nonetheless, we are ensuring compliance with that. So now we'll be in compliance with that, and the chief has the ability, if someone's sick or they need to make an adjustment, to do that.
Any questions? All right, roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson, Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries.
Uh,
And, yep, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, did we do the consent agenda? Or did I
Yes,
just- We did. Okay, sorry.
not a problem.
And
All right.
such a riveting night, you just forgot.
Yeah,
We'll move
I
on
voted
to,
on it too.
Apparently you were happy with your vote.
Yes, apparently.
we'll move on to updates from the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator, and we'll let Mitch go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So significant focus on preparing for town meeting right now. The warrants, getting the voters booklet squared away, the board committee stances. We are plugging away at that. I will be working on the booklet over the next week or so. And I'm going to, IT doesn't know it yet, but ask our digital communications manager to do the PowerPoint. So we will be making progress on that shortly. Our ambulance department received its brand new ambulance yesterday. So it was great to see that arrive. It is beautiful. It's the latest and greatest. Nearly everything is controlled by a touchscreen that's about the size of an iPad. It's fascinating to see such a complex piece of machinery controlled on a 6x6 screen. So we received that. It was properly inspected throughout. The ambulance director made a visit down to inspect it at the vendor's location. It was inspected on site, met the requirements of what we were looking for. So we have sent that payment down. Now the department will focus on getting it set up and getting it into service. They're working to have the new seals put on. They have a great tradition of having beautiful hand-painted seals mounted to the sides of the ambulance. So they are working to get those taken care of and get those mounted. The old ambulance, instead of being sold, will be reassigned to the Department of Public Works. It will become the vehicle that is assigned to the Fleet Services Division. So the mechanics, it's actually perfectly set up for that. They are, responsible now for everything, including school buses, including all of our DPW, ambulance, fire, and very often, especially with our heavy machinery, they need to go out into the field and carry out their repairs. They need to be able to do that and have the equipment readily available in one location. So it will be transitioned over to them to be set up as a repair vehicle. Actually, a number of former ambulances are in service at some towing companies and repair companies for the same use.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yes, so that'll be changed out. The lights will be changed out from red to amber, and it'll be set up with their equipment inside. So if there's a breakdown, they'll be able to head right over with that instead of us having to pay a tow company to get it into DPW and then make the repairs. They'll be able to get right out there. So maintaining it, it's in certainly good enough shape. The mechanic is very confident that he will get a number of years out of it.
What do we have for mileage on it?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's about 5 or 6 years old. The department has taken immaculate care of it. So certainly it's in great shape.
Garage.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Temperature controlled garage, always kept in very good shape. So we'll be transitioning that over to him in the next couple of weeks.
He must be excited.
He is, because we were thinking prior to that, okay, do we buy a couple of cases to go in a pickup truck? That's not totally functional. So once they're ready for it to transition, we'll shuffle it over to Steve and DPW.
Selectman Leah, did you have your hand up?
Briefly, I mean, I don't know whether everybody is aware, but in reality, at this moment, we have 3 ambulances. And the one that Mitch is describing is in fact the oldest one of the fleet, which will be the now first ambulance will become the second ambulance, as I understand it. And then the new one will become the first ambulance.
Anything else, Mitch, from you?
That is it at the moment, Mr. Chair.
All right, any other updates from the Selectwoman Donnelly?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 things. First is I just wanted to mention that the deadline for bids on our housing production plan passed, and we received no bids. So Mitch and I are reworking the request for proposal to include, to make a few tweaks and also to include a maximum value, so that, which we did not include in the first pass, so that potential bidders see that, we understand this is a large undertaking. The second comment I wanted to make is I want to thank we've talked a lot about volunteers tonight. I really want to extend just heartfelt thanks for all of the hard work that the Forest Fire Department and the Fire Department put in Woodland Acres. For those of us who live on this side of town, and I got to go over there quite a few times, they just worked hours and hours, days on end, and just did a remarkable job. Everybody from the state who was there, the DCR, commented on what an excellent group we have and how well trained they are and what a great job they were doing. So I just want to make sure that we recognize their hard work and their commitment to the town.
Thank you. Anything else from the board? Selectwoman Wilkinson?
Sure, two things. Just to echo Denise's comments, I mean, we got to go up there and see firsthand the work they were doing in the area. And it was just fascinating, like awe-inspiring of like how much work. I know that Selectman Lilia gets to see it firsthand when his family members come home, but I was like beyond words at the work and just the area that it's just wild up there. So thank you. And it was nice for us to get a chance to thank them as well and see our other elected officials up there. And it was interesting. And then secondly, as I think everyone here knows, but a new superintendent has started. And as liaison to the school committee, I was able to sit down for a really nice meeting with him. He has moved the kind of central administration office from the high school over to the elementary school. So it's right across from where the student services department is, which I guess is years ago where the superintendent.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
But
Back in 1990.
Yeah, but a really nice job done by, I believe it's IT and facilities, and I'm sure DPW helped. So it looks beautiful, windows. The staff seemed excited once they were kind of moved and had a fresh space. But he's off to a great start, and looking forward to working with him. And he's really looking forward to working with the Board of Selectmen like Rob did. So exciting stuff. And school starts tomorrow in Rockport, so.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
All right. If there's nothing else, I'll just, set a reminder though of what Ruth George said earlier. There is going to be a flu vaccine clinic for seniors on September 16th from 9 to 12. What was the location? Was it the community center? Mitch, do you remember? Yeah, well, okay. So just another reminder for the remaining members here. Selectman Wilkinson?
I had one more thing. Sorry. Tonight is the final, right now is the final Music at the Beach concert, which was like so well attended. I mean, we had concerts with like hundreds of people at them. So huge thanks to obviously this board and to the town administrator and to the police who were really, really helpful in, I don't think they totally expected how many people would attend them, but it's been awesome. And they kind of make Beach Street one way, and they've been obviously great to work with. And thanks to the Legion, Larry told me they sold a lot of hot dogs this season. So looking forward to, I know Bruce has a wait list of bands that want to play. So looking forward to next season already.
Awesome. All right, anything else from the board? If not, we'll move on to second public comment section. All right, if you have any questions, please raise your hands and start off with Toby.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. My question as to what makes a candidate for the Conservation Commission fit to serve on the commission was not answered. Certainly that's a public matter, not a matter of personal affairs. I'd hope for an answer. What was said about town council attending the meetings clarifies that and certainly sounds cautious and reasonable. Thank you for that. But I was not overall reassured. Both statements made by members of your board and under pressure, I would say, by the candidate, that the candidate feels that the commission needs to, the polite phrase was, work with applicants, and there was talk of compromise. I can't quite remember who ventured that word. But the regulations they deal with and administer, the 310 Commonwealth of Massachusetts regulations for the Wetlands Act and the Rockport Wetlands Bylaw are, elaborate and at times confusing, but altogether specific. And each of the people whom you appoint swears an oath, just as each of you has sworn an oath. And you swear, and they swear, to uphold the laws of the Commonwealth and the town. So although there may be differences about interpretation of the regulations, if anyone is talking about compromises or horse trading or going lightly, they're talking about forswearing their oaths and not administering the law. I think you ought to be clear about that as well. So you hope that the people who apply come away with the permits that they've asked for and that they're satisfied, but perhaps they do and perhaps they don't. And if you believe in the law and the regulations and the oath that you swore and the oath you're asking them to swear, there will be those who go away unsatisfied.
Thank you, Toby. Just to let you know, the whole fit comment, it's getting a little too far. Really, the reason behind it was that we had those members that couldn't go to actual meetings because there was no quorum for have meetings. We had them attend the town council meetings, that they got a better understanding on what happens with the commission, and that they felt like they could fit into it because of the rumors that were online that it was only 2 hours a month. We wanted to make sure it was clear that town council explained that to them and all the work that they'd be doing. So I think that's really the word fit. That's what he meant to say, that they attend those classes, or I don't know if it's class, just presentation from our town council explaining what actually the job of the Conservation Commission was. Selectwoman Donnelly, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to remind everyone who's still on the call, including Toby, that every person who spoke regarding the candidate, Dawn, including Dawn, underscored that, of course, they're going to abide by and support the law. So nobody is saying that we should not adhere to our Rockport wetland bylaws or the Wetlands Protection Act. So just to be clear, that is obviously the first order of business.
Thank you. Nathaniel?
Thank you, Chairman Brackett. Nathaniel Mulcahy, 17 Road. I'd like to just make 2 comments. First, Dawn, thank you for stepping forward. Congratulations on your new appointment. And I'm delighted that Rockport now has a quorum for their Concom. So thank you, thank you, thank you. That is a huge relief as an environmentalist. And as an environmentalist, I'd like to suggest, as part of the police department's considerations in a new generator, my family and I have gone through the same considerations. Our neighbors have a diesel generator as a backup. We've looked at a large battery bank with a solar panel, and the efficiency, reliability is higher. The maintenance costs are significantly lower, and the total cost is about the same as our neighbor's diesel generator. Since the new DPW building roof has a provision for solar panels, I would like that to be something tossed into the consideration so that Rockport can continue to lead on environmental policies and have an even more reliable system for our police department in terms of backup power. The battery system requires little to no maintenance. The cost is equal to a generator, and with the solar power, it would lower our city's carbon footprint. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nathaniel. I'll surely put that forward if they want to look into that. I know they did have issues with, they were looking at an EV truck, and that was 2-year wait time. So, I'm sure they can take a look and see what the generator will be, but I don't think we're in a position to wait any longer than 2 years, if that would be the same case there. Selectwoman Donnelly?
Yeah, just point of clarification, the generator is propane operated, not diesel.
It's still a fossil fuel. For us,
I'm aware of that. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah.
The timelines
Just wanted
for
to
delivery.
clarify.
Thank you, appreciate that. The timeline for that we were quoted for diesel and solar panel and battery bank, were the same. So about 4 months.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? If none, we'll be going on to the reading of the executive session motion. And who do we have tonight for that?
Nobody.
Nobody. Who would like to take it?
I'll do it.
All righty.
Stand back. I move that the board enter into executive session for the following purposes. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Back Beach Neighbors Committee versus Town of Rockport, United States District Court, CA number 1:20-CV-11274 NMG, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Back Beach Neighbors Committee versus Town of Rockport Land Court, CA number 21 MISC 000174, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Back Beach Neighbors Committee versus Town of Rockport, Essex Superior Court, docket number 2177 CV 000364. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Stephen Abel versus Town of Rockport et al. MCAD docket number 22BEM 00744. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Glenn McLeod et al. Versus Town of Rockport et al. Essex Superior Court, docket number 2177 CV 00077. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to discuss strategy with respect to negotiations with non-union personnel, police chief. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Rousseau et al. Versus Town of Rockport, United States District Court, CA number 1:22-CV-10331-JGD. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, Local 1679, AFSCME General and Supervisors Unit. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session.
Second.
Thank you.
Oh, he's muted.
Sorry about that. Oh, you answered my second call. So, all right, by not entering into executive session, it would be detrimental to the board's litigating and bargaining positions. The board will not reconvene in open session. Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson.
Aye.
Selectman Murphy.
Aye.
Selectman Loya.
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly.
Aye.
And Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. We are entering into executive session.
Okay, at this time, the Board of Selectmen public portion of the meeting has ended. We ask that you please exit the meeting at this time.